Hello and welcome to this Touch Designer template walkthrough and tutorial on how it works. I'll be walking through on the templates, how it works, how to use it. Find the links for this project for free down below in the description and also on my Patreon. Give me feedbacks in the tips and in the comments and I can make updates to this template. So let's get started. So getting started, first of all, the video here is a common effect that's actually used for converting images or videos into kind of a 3D points. I'll go over kind of how it works step by step, but also kind of how to control it. I created some of these slides here to kind of make you can kind of change the look and style of this. It actually has quite a bit of control. So getting started, the first thing that we need to kind of do is actually work with this movie file. So right now the movie file is actually just a simple movie file that you can grab off the internet. You can change this to any kind of other scene. The only kind of magic here is it does have a loop, so it kind of loops through. All right, so just kind of where it loops and how it loops, you can kind of change where it fades in and out depending on the material that you're using. Other than that, we are pumping it through here to some levels just so we can kind of control. But since we're going to be using a technique here where we're going to be extracting some fake height information, some information from the color of the pixels and the pixel information, you can actually change a lot of the look from here. So not getting ahead of ourselves, let's go on to the next step here. So after we have some levels here, we're going to go convert this texture or this video into a points. So to do that, we use these two top two nodes. And what they're doing here is we're actually just converting, for example, the color information into, for example, the actually giving each point an attribute called color information. And this other one is going to be kind of extracting height information. Now, it's not true height because it's just going to be using the R channel, but it's kind of good enough for our effect. If you kind of look at it close enough, it's noticeable that the it's not true height, but you could actually put in here kind of a height map and see. But you can kind of see that it's giving us somewhat of a fake height information. And for this kind of illusion, waves and ocean scenes tend to work really well. But right now, it's just using kind of like the red channel. And that's kind of why we have a couple of these controls here for the level to help control like how it's interpreting that scale and depending on the material you're using. So here we got color A and color B. And what this does is going to kind of change in how it interprets the levels. Now, it's also going to change the look of the colors, the image, but depending on your material, that could be what you're looking for. But the thing to kind of note here is that it's actually changing kind of the height. See, it's a little bit smoother, or you can make it a little bit more rougher. So this is kind of like the controls here for kind of like how the height and the color information is being interpreted. Okay. So moving on now to the next steps here, we're just using attribute combine, so that way the color information and the height information is both combined. So each point has the color associated and the height information. Now after that, we go through here through a delete operator. This actually can be used for a couple things. One, for performance and also for changing kind of the look and style of things. Here I called it thinning. So if we enable it, we see that it actually removes a lot of the points out of the scene. It actually makes it a little bit lighter, but it also kind of changes the look here. You can kind of like now looks more like a topographical map or where it's more based on lines. The kind of different effects, of course, like right now you can change the stepping of it, how wide or narrow these are. If you want it to be more of a random instead of being kind of a solid color. For some reason, some values like 7 tend to be like create some neat effects that I like. So yeah, you can also invert it. So depending on the kind of material and size you want, so you have all these different kind of options here. Let me get this back to how I like it. There we go. So yeah, that is the thinning. It's just a delete operator. Okay, and then we go into the next two here. Well, this is just a transform, no big deal. Here we got the first random. Now, what this random is actually randomizing is the scale of each point. Right now, a point doesn't actually have like necessarily like it's not an instance yet, but here we're controlling the scale. We're using a random, so we're just kind of applying a random scale to each point. But we can also control how that random looks like. So I have these controls here for the, and actually I might as well mention there's actually two random node operators here. One is applying a random noise to the scale, and the other one's applying a random to the rotation. Since it's a point right now, the rotation doesn't really make much of a difference, but down the road, which we're getting really close to, we're gonna instance a box on each of them. So we're gonna put a cube on each one. So then the rotation becomes more obvious and is going to become usable. So we come over here to like the scale, rotation, and translation, and we can definitely change the look of things here. We can make it more a lot larger. We can kind of change the randomness between the different types. There we go. So we can kind of make them stand up more, stand out more. There we go. So if we want to thin it out, we can get different looks here. We can kind of more of a meshy look. Let me scale these up. There we go. Is this clamping? Yeah, my bad. That's not supposed to be clamping. There we go. And then this one here. So it's starting to look a little bit more frothy, but you can make it more cube-like. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Whoopsies. So obviously there's some tweaking here involved, but now it's kind of looking more of a cube aesthetic. So this is all going to kind of be dependent on the kind of look you're looking for, what you're wanting to do, and the material that you're applying it to. So there's some definitely different strategies here for different looks. Okay. So right now I'm just kind of randomly going through. I also like to play around with the rotation of each cube. It definitely changes a lot in terms of lighting. Actually, let me go ahead and make these cubes large so we can kind of see what's going on. There we go. That's the look I was looking for earlier. Yeah, we got to put that down a little bit more. So when the cubes are here a lot larger, it's a little bit more obvious to see what's going on in terms of rotation. Right now, they're all got a uniform rotation, okay? But just changing the lighting, the rotation changes kind of like the light, because there's lights in the scene. And this one kind of just like how random each one. So if I increase here, I'm basically increasing the randomness. So now each one has kind of like their own random. And here we can still control kind of like the rotation. So if you animate that or add a LFO or something, you can kind of get some control. Okay, so yeah, these are definitely some controls that I kind of built in here just to help the scene evolve and create different effects and try to make it a little bit of adaptable to different material. Right now I'm just using like this water scene, but you can use your imagination, use different material and go crazy. So let me go ahead and get this down to a different look here. Give more how I had it before. I always get a little, there we go. So let's move on. There's also another effect here, which is a translation here. This one's more of a subtle and kind of creates like a trailing effect. Probably should have done it earlier because it makes the boxes kind of stand out more. But yeah, this is kind of like different settings to kind of create different vibes, and you can kind of animate it and bring it in, bring it out. You can't push it too far because then it does kind of distort there, but you can still take it pretty far. Okay, get that back to 0. All right, so that's kind of like what these nodes are here doing. These random what these random operators are doing. We have here now another noise. Now this noise is going to be controlling the position. Okay, so this is going to be kind of like what we're seeing as overall. If I disable this noise here, we can kind of see where without that extra noise there, this is kind of what the effect is. You're getting like the raw pixel information. from the video, extracting kind of a pseudo height information and then applying. And you can actually see where like the green, where the water is down, but that's kind of part of the look here. Now, if I apply the noise back, that's kind of warping everything. Now you see it jumping around. That's because I do have some audio reactivity going on here. Feel free to use the song as well. Don't worry about any copyrights or anything like that. But right now, just have it off, so it's kind of like not in our way. But that's what is here controlling now, is kind of like that noise here. So we come here to the intensity controls. Oops. Yeah, sorry about that. So we come here to the intensity controls. So now we can kind of control how hard or soft things are going to be kind of reacting. Like if I want the kick to really bring that noise out or make it more subtle. Okay. So what I did here for this kind of project, the kick is kind of like this bigger, more broader noise, as you see. And then the snare control is more like the harmonics. It kind of creates like ripples. So it's more ripply when it gets triggered. Okay. And then the same thing with like the spectral response, depending on as the music changes from more bright to more dark, it also affects a little bit of the rippling. It makes it more ripply or less ripply, and you can kind of change how intense it is. Same thing with the ripple control. These are essentially kind of controlling the same kind of parameters, just different aspects of them. So yeah, then you can play around. There's also some beat detection that can be tweaked. This was kind of tweaked a little bit for this song, but obviously you can tweak it to your tastes. Okay, so that's kind of like the gist of it here for the kind of like the point part of everything. The part here I kind of glossed over a little bit was just kind of the instancing, which is not a big deal. It just copies a box onto every point that we had before. And then we come to a rendering section. So now this is actually where the scene is kind of officially, quote unquote, rendered in 3D with the camera and two lights on the scene. I got these two lights are, oops, I don't know why they're off, but this one's kind of acting as a rim light and one's more of a fill light. And we do have some controls up here. One of them starting with the camera. There is a little bit of a fog effect going on, using it more to kind of create an illusion of depth. But yeah, you can come here and definitely change the colors to whatever you would like. I just have kind of a greenish tone here to kind of make it different, bring out a little bit of the green. But you can also disable it and just have a regular background color here, and it kind of stands out as you see between the gaps. Depending on the look here, this look doesn't have a lot of gaps, but for example, if I were to thin this out, you would, and now it becomes a little bit more obvious that we got a background here. So we see, you can kind of create different effects. Put the fog on and then blend it in, blend it out, kind of like a little vignette effect here going on, but in depth. These other two lights, this one is kind of more of a rim light, so it kind of gives more of the shadows, brings a lot of more of the highlights and the shadows, especially when the kick comes in and things get a little bit more intense. Let me lighten this up again. I think I went a little bit overboard. Oops, maybe made it too dense. Yeah. So we can definitely bring in that in. This is a more of a fill light here. As you see, it's kind of a yellowish, greenish color, kind of simulating a little bit of the sun or in this scene. But yeah, go crazy, change the colors to anything that suits. And of course, that's pretty much it for the lights. Once it renders out the geometry to a top, there is some post effects that we have here. There's a small feedback effect, some bloom, and a luma blur. So all these have some controls here. Now these are definitely artistic and a little experimental. The feedback kind of gives it, actually I should have turned it down to make things a little bit more crispier. Right now, yeah, see that's a lot crispier. But you can see it kind of creates this little more blurry effect as things kind of move along. And you can kind of control that. And of course, if you want things nice and crisp, you can bring the feedback down. Okay. So a lot of these options here are going to kind of create a different looks. Let me put the effect a little bit higher. So like if you want things a little bit, for example, let me turn the green out and kind of get a different vibe going here. So you can definitely tweak things very much so. Yeah, there we go. And of course, then you can adjust like the scene lights. But yeah, as you see, it's very interesting, easy to kind of play around and create different effects, and you can kind of fade into that and fade out. See, so it's kind of depending on how you want to play things out. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Other than that, oh, sorry, I did go over here. So that is the feedback effect. That's kind of what controls the feedbacking. Let me go ahead and turn these back to something more decent here. There we go. Okay. So now we got a couple of other post effects here. Typical bloom, just a little bit of bloom. I didn't really go too crazy. It's you can kind of go a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Right now I have it very subtle, although I do enjoy it. And then there's also kind of a blur, a Luma blur vignette kind of going on, almost to kind of trick it into looking somewhat like a tilt shift to play around perspective. To me, sometimes it looks like big landscapes, and then sometimes it looks like tiny little ocean waves. So I think that's it. Leave your feedback down below. Let me know. I will definitely post this up on my Patreon, and definitely have this link down below for it. It will be for free. Feel free to use the music, anything you want. It's all for you. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.